Good morning, my brothers and sisters. Welcome to episode number 57 in the book of Genesis. We're in a chronological march through Genesis. Today is about God building a covenant. Now, there's a sub part of this where Noah builds an altar, and Noah does please God by what he does today. But the truly epic, important thing is what God does, and that he builds a covenant. It's something that only God can do. And it's the terms of this deal that I want to talk about a little bit today. This is from the end of chapter 8 in the book of Genesis. God's covenant with Noah, 8:20. Then Noah built an altar to the Lord and took some of every clean animal and some of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. And when the Lord smelled the pleasing aroma, the Lord said in his heart, I will never again curse the ground because of man. For the intention of man's heart is evil from his youth. Neither will I ever again strike down every living creature as I have done. While the earth remains, seedtime and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. So this is the moment just after Noah gets off the boat. He's been on the ark for a year. And the first thing that we're told is that Noah builds an altar of interest with the and sacrifices with stuff that the Lord provided, the 7 pairs of animals, the clean animals. And obviously this requires a full commitment of those animals, but that blood, kind of is a hint for the long-term down the road, pointing to Jesus and the perfect sacrifice that's offered one time for all time. All right. But the idea here is what pleases God. Now, God did not fall off his throne here. He didn't forget that every intent is only ever evil for mankind. And yet, man, specifically Noah here, pleases God. So it's almost like if he looks with the judgment eye, God knows that every intent is only ever evil. But if he looks with his grace eye, he sees the efforts of Noah to please the Lord. So that's been going on since Cain and Abel. Abel brings the firstborn and blood and pleases the Lord with his sacrifice. And then Cain brings grain and a bad attitude, and the Lord says, no, that's not the effort I'm looking for. If you change, I will be pleased. Well, Cain says no and moves away from the Lord. So I think it's very clear in scriptures what pleases God and what doesn't please God. And anybody who says, I don't know what pleases God, hasn't availed themselves of the full counsel of his moral decrees, or is not looking with a sincere heart. All right, so Noah ends up pleasing with this pleasing aroma towards the Lord. So a good question for all of us is, how can I really, really, really please you in thought and action and generosity and service, by comforting, in maybe study, by faithfulness and keeping covenant? So God can be pleased, and you can do it by body and mind. So, all right, let's talk about covenant, because this is a big deal and kind of never happens in history up to this point. God closes a deal. So what is a covenant? It's an agreement. And here we see God signing and making a promise. Now, this is not a promise like, hey, I promise to meet you for coffee at 10 o'clock. This is 100% reliable, 100% true, can't be violated thing. And what's man's part of this covenant? Basically, it's nothing. There are some covenants that are, if you do this, I will do this. This one is, this is divine resolve. This is God saying, I will do this. And we need this because we're, frail people. He knows the intent. So this is the contrast here. He knows the intent of our heart. The intention of man's heart is evil. Every intent, only ever evil. And he says, you can please me. And so there's this tension. And knowing this, knowing that he knows that man's intent of our heart isn't very good, it only makes this covenant that he makes with us only better. So God's saying, I know you. I know you're not perfect. I know you're kind of pathetic, actually. I know you need help. Yet here I am, and here I stay. And he makes this promise. And the promise is, I will never again destroy the world, destroy living creatures with a flood again. Never again like this. One big flood and done. Isaiah 54 talks about it. And he says, this is like the days of Noah to me, as I swore that the waters of Noah should no more go over the earth. Now, how long is this covenant in force for? while the earth remains, it says. So that is, God is reserving judgment for the end of days, and the earth is going to be consumed by fire, says 2 Peter chapter 3. So what the Noah covenant is, that there's going to be no destruction until that day of judgment. So that universality of final judgment is reserved here by God. But he's going to say there's no worldwide disasters again. And here's the cool part about that, is there's always going to be someone outside, a human being outside the disaster zone, who will be available to help. Now, whether they help or not is another thing. So God gives us space for people to come. Unlike with the Noah flood, there was nobody left. All right, so let's draw some conclusion today. You know, the first thing we do every day is we in a sense build an altar, and you know, we bring ourselves to the day, we bring ourselves to the Lord. So Romans 12:1 says, I appeal to your brothers, by the mercies of God, present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and acceptable God, which is your spiritual worship. And don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. So we bring body and mind every day before the Lord as a potential pleasing sacrifice. So we can please God with this. So let's, like Noah, send up a pleasing aroma to God. Wouldn't it be awesome? Is that this day, this very day, God ends up and says, you, podcast listener, you smell good to me. It's a great goal. And let's us put ourselves in that settled, resting place of fellowship with the Lord and try, and we have efforts here to do what pleases God, even though he knows the intentions of our heart. All right, so let's admire and appreciate God, too, for his covenant with us knuckleheads. So God is saying, yeah, I know you guys are knuckleheads, but you can even knuckleheads can please God. And then perhaps, because disasters now are localized, you may find a person or a country in a disaster zone right now. But somebody will be outside the disaster zone. That might be you today, and maybe you can help them in their disaster. So let's work on our day today, and let's at the end of the day have the Lord say, you smell good to me. Thanks for listening.